Welcome to the online tutorial, Understanding User Context. This is the fourth tutorial in a 5-part series about usability and how it relates to instructional design. In the previous lesson, Usability in mLearning, we learned how to design instructional materials for mobile learning contexts with the user in mind. In this lesson, we will take a closer look at the context in which users try to retrieve information and how to consider this when designing instructional materials. Doing so will help an instructional designer in the analysis and design phases of the ADDIE model, as they will better understand how the user will consume the material. Understanding context of how the end user will be engaging with the product that you are designing is a crucial aspect to consider, no matter what type of product that you are designing for. Let's take a look first at defining context so that we have a base understanding of how to design for it. In an experiment that looked at information retrieval systems and user interface design, Bierig and Goker examined the context in which users interact with these information retrieval devices. They looked and identified 3 particular elements of context: time, location, and user interests. As an instructional designer, considering all of these factors within the context of how the users will be using your product during the analysis stage of the ADDIE model can give you great understanding and insight into how your users will be interacting with your instructional material and consequently how you should be designing for them. Let's take a look at each of these 3 elements of context and see how they can influence how you should be designing for your users. Let's start with time. Think for a moment about how time can affect how your users will interact with your instructional material. Time can refer to the time of the day your learners will be using your materials. If they will be primarily using or interacting with your instructional material or technology at peak hours of the day, they may be dealing with lower bandwidth and therefore slower internet connections. A slower internet connection can affect what materials your learners can download and at what rate. Slow downloads can cause users to give up and skip over certain parts of your learning materials and therefore miss out on important information. Considering time of day and even the time of the year may also affect how you should design your interface and how your users should interact with your instructional materials. Certain material may become out of date quickly and may need to be refreshed to the most current and therefore most accurate information. Providing feedback to the user, letting them know that the content needs to be updated, or better yet, have the system do this for the user, is a good usability design. Considering location in your analysis and design means that you are taking into account where your users will be accessing and interacting with your instructional material. If your users will be accessing your material on the go, they may be using mobile technology. This means that your instructional materials will need to be accessible via mobile technology and will need to be created and exported using mobile-compatible technology. If you are designing for smartphones with GPS-enabled technology, you will need to make sure that the technology that you are designing for supports GPS and offers proper alternatives and promptings to the learner in case the GPS malfunctions or is not available for one reason or another. Finally, considering user interests can also affect how instructional material is designed. Keep in mind that when designing for certain devices, such as a computer screen, you may have lots of real estate on the screen within which to work and present your content. However, with mobile or personal digital devices, the screens are much smaller. This means that you must choose wisely as a designer which content will be most useful to your learners, as well as which will be most attention-grabbing or of interest to them. If you can align your content to best match the learning objectives and interests of your users, you have a better chance of having success with your design. This concludes the 4th tutorial, Understanding User Context. The 5th and final tutorial is entitled Designing Technological Devices to Adapt to the User, where we will be learning about responsive design.